There we go. New York Stock Exchange, 4 o'clock, Broad and Wall in New York City, Manhattan, ringing the bell, ding, ding, ding. And kind of a quiet day on Wall Street, believe it or not. We're all waiting today to find out what Jerome Powell was going to do with interest rates. And as you can see, the Dow Jones ended a little bit lower, 45. I have 45 lower. This, a couple of seconds, it tends to continue to settle. So 42 on the screen, about the same. NASDAQ up a touch, up 25 on your screen. Here, there. They're settling right there. 38, 183, 25, 44. Couple of things. Gold holding the high $3,300 area, almost $3,400 an ounce still. Oil still up there. Oil's been reactive to what's going on in the Middle East. Iran holds the second largest oil reserves on the planet, next to Saudi Arabia. I think we're third in the United States, but Iran, every time Israel bombs something that's near oil infrastructure, oil prices shoot up. When it calms down, they start to ease back down. So it was another $2 higher earlier, $75 a barrel. Again, we started when this whole Iran-Israel conflict started. It was around $62, $63 a barrel. So not very good. And let me just jump over to crypto. Crypto's been all over the place lately. Bitcoin right now, 103,900. So Bitcoin backing off a little bit. And one more, we like to keep an eye on what Elon Musk's stock is doing, because remember when Tim Walz said he was rooting for it to go down at $225 a share, it's $322, so it's $100 higher. All right, let's bring in our first guest, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona, who says President Trump is acting defensively, does not want a war. Welcome, Congressman. I say Andy, I mean Congressman Andy Biggs. I don't think anyone wants a war, sir. Here seems to be the question. Is this allow Israel to go take out the economic and the nuclear capabilities of Iran? Is it the United States doing it, or is this regime change, and where do you stand on these? Because this is really kind of splitting MAGA in two right now.
Yeah, no, the easiest part, the last one is this regime change. And here I think you have a tremendous split. I don't think Trump's necessarily advocating for regime change, but I do believe Netanyahu is. I've been tracking his comments, and I think he wants regime change. Is the U.S. involved? To the extent that we provide the vast amount of weaponry to Israel, then I guess you could say we are. But we sell Israel and many other countries weaponry as well. And ultimately, those countries are going to make the decision on how they use it. And I would say one thing that you see, well, actually two things that you see. The superiority right now of the U.S. weaponry, number one. Number two is that Israel has things at hand without the U.S. Getting involved offensively or aggressively or taking this to Iran. So I'm trying to get all your questions. I know you gave me three there, Eric.
So Congressman, I guess my question is, where does Congressman Biggs fall in like right now, what's going on in MAGAverse? We have, Tucker Carlson on one side saying that we should have no part in what's going on striking Iran. And then you have the Fox hosts, let's call them Hannity and Mark Levin and Jesse Waters, who say annihilate Iran. So, and they're going back and forth. And to be honest, like Trump kind of ran on, I don't want any more foreign wars, but has recently signaled that the U.S. might get involved militarily, kinetically militarily. And I'm not sure if that's just a negotiating ploy or tool he's using, or he really means we would fly some of our own jets and drop bombs on Iran, because that would certainly implicate us. Your thoughts? Where does Andy Biggs fall?
Yeah, so my personal view is that the America First international policy is one where we don't get involved in foreign wars, where we look out for the U.S. interest always first. We don't put boots on the ground. We don't put our troops in harm's way unless there's a legitimate defensive posture that we have to take. And I'm looking at this and I say, well, Israel is a great friend, a great ally, and they've engaged in this because they believe that Iran is an existential threat to them. And who's to say they're wrong? I mean, for all these years, Khomeini and then his predecessor all said they wanted to wipe Israel off the map. IAEA, the International Atomic Energy affiliation there, they said that there's vast amounts of enriched uranium going on. They're expanding their centrifuges in Iran. So who's to say that Israel did not have a predicate to do what they've done? The question for us is, and for me is, and this is where I come down, we don't need to be going in there. Israel is taking care of business absolutely fine. From that perspective, they're winning. They have control over the skies. They've got dominion over all of the space that's Iran, and they're controlling that situation. The U.S. doesn't need to do more than that. In fact, I'm a believer that what President Trump is really trying to do is leverage what Israel's doing to get Iran back to the table to resolve this, because the bottom line is he doesn't want, and I don't blame him, and I agree with this position, I don't want Iran to have any enriched uranium that they don't need for a nuclear reactor for an energy deployment. But they don't even need that, because they have, as you say, massive amounts of fossil.
That's always been the joke, Congressman. It's always been the joke. Yeah. Iran's been doing this since I've been, an adult, and I came into the industry in the oil business, and they've been saying that they need nuclear for power. And they have a handful of million people in Tehran. They have trillions of barrels equivalent of energy under their sand. Why in the hell would they need nuclear? They don't. This is all about gaining the weapon. We've known it for 50 years. The question is, there are those who say, do it now, get rid of it, and regime change or not. I mean, we tried to play the regime change in Iraq, and it didn't work out so well, did it?
No, I'm not a big believer that we can change regime. I think if I were predicting what would happen is, if Israel actually does attempt to change the regime, if they do take out Khomeini or weaken him sufficiently, I do think that the Iranian street, the people there are great. The base of that country, they want economic freedom. They want a change in regime. They want more liberal policies. And it wouldn't surprise me that by substantially weakening this regime, that you would see some movement from below, from the street. The past couple of times you've seen that kind of movement, it was because the U.S. had kind of stimulated that movement, right? And I think you're familiar with this, Eric, where we said, well, yeah, if they go forward, then we'll be there to support you, et cetera, et cetera. And then they do go forward, and we disappear. I'm of the opinion that we stand down and we watch this thing deploy, and what'll happen is Israel's going to weaken that leadership, and don't be surprised if you see movement from the Iranian street. And that would be your regime change. But I'm not a big believer that you can go in and forcibly change regimes, because it is rarely worked in the past.
Let's just, Hezbollah has come out and said we're not going to get involved unless and until it looks like there may be a regime change in Tehran, in Iran. What if Hezbollah does attack any of our interests anywhere, assets, interests in the region? If Hezbollah does as a proxy to Iran, then do we get involved militarily?
I think our response would be the same as it always is. When Hezbollah goes, we respond and say, we don't just go and say something. We actually demonstrably rebuke Hezbollah with a military force, kinetic force. And that necessarily, it would be Hezbollah accelerating and drawing us into it. And that's the danger we have here. I don't want us to be drawn into it. But as you know, we've got a lot of personnel and assets over there that have some degree of vulnerability. But I do think that the proxies of Tehran, they have to be prepared to stand down a bit. I mean, the Houthis, the Hezbollah, Hamas, they've all been dramatically reduced over the last 6 months. And you don't want us to have to respond because we don't want to get drawn into it. But in that case, it would be Hezbollah asking for us to be drawn in. And by the way, that is a real danger.
So what do you say to those who say, we have this moment in time in history to take down this regime? Clearly Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terror the world has ever seen, the world over. We know that they've sponsored terror, Hezbollah, Hamas, everywhere around the world. Who are these? They sponsor it. They pay for it. They train them. Is this not the moment? I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't want to go to war either. I don't want any American soldiers in the air, on the ground, anywhere. Support Israel, fine. However, this may be the moment where you can turn Iran into a hostile state sponsor of terror and bring them into the 21st century.
Look, if they're going to have regime change in Iran that's going to be meaningful and takes them back to a normalized nation state where they have a free economy with free movement of their people, which I believe that's what the people of Iran want, then it doesn't have to be imposed on them by us. This notion that this is the moment in time, this is the only moment in time, we've heard that many times. And I would say this isn't our war necessarily. We're supporting Israel. They're our friend and our partner, and we provide them with weaponry as a client state. But it's Israel that is capable of doing this without our intervention. And I do believe that Iran could be a much more responsible player in the Middle East. But don't forget, even when Iran was run quite a bit differently than it is now, it wasn't Iran always. There were other states in the Middle East that would rise up. There were other bodies, there were other factions and radicals that rose up that also wanted to try to get Israel. We have had multiple wars to destroy Israel, and Israel's always been able to survive that. Yeah. But I think they're so strong now that they can actually take out Iran. But the point I'm trying to make is there is rarely in history a single moment where action will change the course of history forever. And I'm not sure this is it either, because we don't know what the mood of the Iranian street is, other than this general reporting that I've seen for years and talking to basically Iranian refugees. I do believe that they're ready for a regime change, but I'm not sure this is the moment where the U.S. has to commit to go in. Don't forget, Eric, they said almost the same things over Iraq. They said the same things over Afghanistan. I know that. And I would say we've got to be very cautious.
Different than no weapons of mass destruction here yet, but they're on the doorstep of that. Congressman, right. I agree with you completely. We have complete air superiority over Tehran, over the whole country of Iran right now. Let Israel finish the job, support them all the way. Agree with that. You appreciate your time, Congressman Andy Biggs. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Before we head to break, I want to remind you about the podcast and YouTube page, both updated daily. You can hear the show, tons of other content. Just subscribe one of those there. They're always going to be free. By the way, I don't know if you have it, guys. Let's do some phone calls. We have a voicemail number. There it is, 888-601-0032. Let me know what you think. Say whatever you want, but beware what you say may be used against you on this show in the upcoming days. Just have some fun, keep it clean, and let us know what you think about regime change, MAGA, Trump, Tucker Carlson arguing. What's going on here? Let me know. We're going to play some of the fun ones. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes.
Some of the people in the base don't want a long-term war. They're afraid that we're going to get into a long-term war. We're not looking for a long-term war. We're looking. I only want one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Right. That's it. I'm not looking long-term, short-term. And I've been saying that for 20 years. I've been saying it as a civilian who got a lot of publicity. People would cover it. Very simply, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's it. It's not a question of anything else. And if you did, you wouldn't have much of a country, because they would use it on us and would use it on other people, and there'd be a terror all over the world.
Well, there's Donald Trump wearing the rare white Make America Great hat again. Brian Glenn was there. That was him asking that great question. Let's bring him in. Rav Chief White House correspondent Brian Glenn. Great question, by the way. And by the way, that question made the rounds all over social media. You're getting it done, BG. You're getting it done. Tell us a little bit about that question. And,
thank you.
And what your feeling and sense is what the Commander-in-Chief is thinking and going to do.
Well, Eric, as always, thanks for having me on. That question was really in response to what we're all seeing on X and on social media about this huge, I guess, divide within the base of whether or not you have some that want nothing to do what's going on, and you have some that others that feel like President Trump just said, we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So that question was to address, and that question was a piggyback off of a CNN reporter who asked a variance of that question, but kind of got shut down. And so I just picked up the ball and said, look, there is a kind of a split between the base, ones that support it, ones that don't. But, we all, at the end of the day, we don't want a nuclear weapon. I also think it's very interesting, Eric, that the left does not allow dialogue within their own party. Okay, they shut it down. We often have disagreements within our party, within the base, and we have conversations about it. We discuss our differences, but at the end of the day, we all come together to support the president. No one's leaving President Trump over this issue. Let's make crystal clear on that. The base is going to stay strong in support of President Trump, whether or not they like what we're doing or whether they don't, and are completely against it. But the left does not allow any dialogue at all on their issues. They shut them all down. Yeah,
it's a great point. And I think a lot of people, especially, again, I watch the Gitter chat, I watch the Rumble chat, I watch X, and they get lit up. You and I, our conversation, whatever, the other day, maybe it was Monday or maybe it was Friday, where they got lit up at us a little bit, like, how can you guys not get on board to annihilate Iran off the face of the earth? Well, we support, I'll speak for myself, I support President Trump, whatever he does. Sometimes I don't like some of the things he does, tariffs, okay, but I support him, and I hope it works out. And I'll support him, whatever he does here, too. I don't love the idea of getting involved in a war, but we will support him. The question is, it's the folks who are fighting, like this Tucker Carlson on one side and Mark Levin and Hannity on the other, and they're just going at it. For me, that's what I don't want to happen, because that gives the left a way out. They were buried in the corner. No popularity. Their numbers were tanking. They had no leadership. They had no platform. They were dead. They were DOA, folks. And then all of a sudden there's a split within really strong Trump supporters, and it breathes new life into them, so to speak.
No, you're right. And President Trump even mentioned his stance on Iran is even bringing in independents and some Democrats that just absolutely feel like Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. So it does bring in some people from the middle and from the left as well. But I agree. Some of the viciousness that's happening within our party is not good. But I still say this, at the end of the day, what are they going to all of a sudden start voting for Democrats now because they disagree with President Trump on this? No, they're going to stay strong. They're going to support MAGA. And, the base is so together 99% of the time. And I love that example that you brought up, Eric. Remember, you were not a big tariff guy, and you were very out in the open. You didn't like the tariffs, but you said, look, at the end of the day, President Trump's, I want him to be successful. I want this country to be successful. And so I'm going to support it, even though you didn't like it. I totally respect the fact that you said that, because a lot of people were so pro tariffs that if you even spoke out against it, they were like, what? You mean you don't want us to succeed in life? Like, what? You don't want us to make more money? Like, but you understood. And you have these conversations, and that's why dialogue like this is so important.
You know who else respects it? Not only the folks watching who really have open minds and hearts, the Trump administration. I was out there saying I don't like the idea of a tariff, but you know what? I trust Trump, and let's go. America first. Let's get her done. Feel the same way about this. Here's my issue with this. It's like I'm guessing you are too, you can weigh in, but I am very much, and have been since day one, against getting involved in foreign wars. I was never a fan of Bush and weapons of mass destruction, regime change in Iraq. Never was a fan of that. But here's the other one. I was a very aggressive anti-Ukraine funding guy. I find it very, very difficult to be that against helping out Ukraine when they're getting slaughtered by Russians, and then all of a sudden turn around and say, let's wipe Iran off the face of the earth. I think they should get rid of the nukes and bomb them. Regime change, great, but not us. That's all. Just not us, Brian.
Yeah. I understand. And you know what would have been interesting if President Trump would have stayed at the G7 and Zelensky was scheduled to be there, I believe, today, if I'm not mistaken. So, or no, that would have been yesterday. Yeah, it would have been there yesterday. And I'm sure those conversations would have came up as well. Look, I'm with you. No foreign wars, no boots on the ground. We're past all that. The whole Bush era of just bombing everybody just for the sake of bombing them and putting, tens of thousands of troops around the world in one place to fight a war. I don't want that. I don't think any of us want that. But if it makes the world a safer place and we can do it in a way where, and this is one of my first questions that came up, and I don't think it made the social media rounds, is I asked President Trump at the top of his press conference that he's been very, I think, compassionate towards the Iranian people, giving them a heads up to get out of Tehran. So, and my question was going to be, what is your message for the people of Iran? Because let's make no mistake about it. The people of Iran is very different than the government in Iran. And I don't think President Trump has any desire to kill innocent people in Iran. That's not his intention. He doesn't want that. He just wants to take out the nuclear facility, just like the Israeli government does. But I think we need to continue to keep the people of Iran in our prayers, because Eric, I mean, they're caught up in a horrible government. It's a brutal dictatorship over there, and I think organically they need to have some type of revolution. It's going to
end, Brian. It's going to end. They cannot be religious fanatics forever and call for the annihilation of everyone that's not, a believer in the Muslim is in Islam. It's going to end at some point. That the whatever 40 million people in Iran will rise up. They should be doing it now, but at some point, and maybe this moment, maybe Trump's right. This moment, I just deep in my heart, I don't think Trump wants to go to war. I've known the guy a long time. He's always said no foreign wars. I just believe that this whole show of force, moving 3 aircraft carrier support units to the Middle East and Europe area, I think this is all a show of force to kind of move Iran to the point where they come to the bargaining table for real, and not this BS that they've been doing with Biden and Obama for the last 15, 20 years. Quick thought before if you want to do it, we can talk about the large, what do they call it? I'll use the nicer term, the lifting that happened at the White House today.
Yeah, you mean the flagpole, right?
Flagpole.
It's great. Which, by the way, the flagpole, here's some stats for you, goes 9 feet underground and is filled with sand around the base of it underground. It adds stability, soil, dirt, erodes the content of the flagpole, so sand's much better to use. He loved it. He loved to talk about the flagpole. It's something he's wanted to do for a while. He did it. It's going to be another one on the North Lawn as well. Plus, Eric, he is going to build that big, beautiful ballroom soon. I asked him about that as well as we were standing there. He showed me in the direction that he was going to build that ballroom. It's going to be spectacular. President Trump, no doubt about it, is leaving this country better than he came in, and also is going to leave the White House better looking than it was before he showed up.
He loves those flags. He remember when he grabbed the flag at CPAC? But more importantly, before he was even president, he put up a major flag at Mar-a-Lago, and Palm Beach was fining him. They were fining him like $1,000 a day, and he said, "I don't care," and kept going it until he became president. And then he had that fix. He had that monster flag that's on the front of Mar-a-Lago. Check it out next time. That was actually violating the Palm Beach height restrictions. Got to go. Be safe. Drive carefully, and we'll see you again soon, folks. We'll be back.
See you.
2.5 minutes. Well, there it is. Is it Ben or Mad Dog? Mad Dog, you on the Voice of God, Ben?
It's Mad Dog.
Mad Dog, Little quiet skies over Tel Aviv this time. Couple nights ago, a couple days ago, night in Tel Aviv, where the skies were kind of lighting up, weren't they?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is a
Interesting.
live shot from Tel Aviv right
An
now.
interesting take. A little quiet. A little quiet. All right, let's bring in continue the conversation on the Israel-Iran conflict. Joining me now is the Co-Secretary General of the Parliamentary Group, Dr. Walid Faris. Walid, really good to get you back on, especially now with what's going on. You've been hearing the discussion. You know, you're up to speed on all that. Our folks are up to speed as well. Tell us where we are on eliminating the nuclear threat from Iran, regime change with Iran, and what you think Trump is doing and what he's going to do.
It has a little history that we need to remind our audience very, very quickly. The Trump administration came a few months ago, but the disasters have been going on with the Obama and then Biden administrations for 12 years. Remember, they have allowed this regime to start in 2009 when there were millions of Iranians asking Obama, are you with us or are you with them? And then other revolts happened in Iran. But at the same time, the problem is that the Khomeini regime, that's the Islamist regime, the real name of the Islamist regime in Iran, has been developing precisely this nuclear weapon, have been also funding 5-6 militias, have been behind this October 7, and have been also trying to penetrate our country all the way up to attempt to kill our president. So for sure, we're not dealing with Sweden or New Zealand in Iran. We're dealing with the jihadi regime, the most powerful jihadi regime. Now, the answer to that is that the president asked the Israelis not to do anything for 60 days to give a last chance. That was not the one before last. That was the last chance for the regime to come and accept the deal that President Trump and his envoys have been preparing. So what we have noted was that they were stretching in time. They were saying, hey, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year. Why? To cover up for the preparations. And the Israeli clock is different than the American clock. They are close. They are immediately threatened. So on the 61st day, my friend, Israel launched its operation, its surgical strike, while the regime, the Islamic regime, is sending missiles. It's like the Nazis over London. The Israelis are surgically taking out component of that program, but also they're doing something more. They are eliminating some of the heads of the agencies, of the the forces that are behind these problems. Now, and I conclude here quickly, the president is making a choice, and that choice is you lost your opportunity. That's for the regime, but I can still hear you. I can still listen to you. While on the other hand, we are supporting the Israelis defensively. We are helping them with the counter missile in the skies from the Mediterranean. We have all what it takes if there is an order to go and do more. And the next few days are going to be very important.
Well, I'm glad you said what you said. You started this with talking about Obama and Biden, and yesterday's monologue talked exactly that. Weak presidents essentially create wars. I will say this, in early 2023, Obama and Blinken sent $6 billion back to Iran. And they said, don't worry, we have control over the money. It can only be used for humanitarian aid. Within a few months, they realized they had no control over the money. And then October 7, 2023, a few months after that, 1,400 Israelis slaughtered, likely with some of the money that we gave back to them. I'm willing to make that leap, that tie. Are you?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, let's go back quickly and visit the actual mothership, which was the Iran deal, which was signed by then President Obama. And in 2015, 2016, he allowed the regime to receive $150 billion. What sane mind could give all that money to a regime that has been practicing terror since 1979. Then we realized one thing, that behind that deal, there was a transaction. This is what the American public has missed, and I hope that Congress will go back and then research what has happened. Out of the $150 billion that went to the regime, guess what? You have people who profit from it. 10% came back. 10% came back. That's the Iran lobby that we're talking about, that has been able to influence the academia, media, the whole 300,000 activists and militants we have been seeing since October 7 on our campuses. Where is that money coming from? From Switzerland? It's coming from the Iran deal. So while the regime was actually fooling us, penetrating our institutions, arming itself, preparing itself. Yes, they did October 7th, but their goal is way beyond October 7th. That's why this is a moment now in history. But, regime change, we're not talking about Sweden, or we're not talking about countries that elect their leaders. This is a regime that has been there nonstop for 79. However, changing the regime should not be at the hands of the United States, not even at the hands of Israel, at the hands of the Iranian people. And what Iranian opposition are telling me, all you have to do, you Americans, stop funding that regime. And you just mentioned now the most important, most recent act that the Biden administration did was to send $6 to $7 billion in 2023. And yes, you're right. Some of that money, which means the money that was sent to Hamas, was used in this operation. That's why we have to stop it, because there will be more billions of dollars, maybe up to $1 trillion from this regime. That's the negotiations. And imagine what would that do to terrorism, not just against Israel, against Europe, against the United States.
It's incredible. Between Biden and Obama, you point out the JCPOA, that was the deal that you're talking about, which basically opened the door for them to enrich uranium. They played this game where we signed a deal, we send them $150 billion, and they were going to open up their facilities so that we can inspect, and they never did that, did they?
Absolutely not. First of all, they did not meet the conditions, but then they will come to the brokers. See, there is a whole history of it. The brokers are the people who are going in between us, between the regime and us. And every time they don't apply anything, that's the regime, those brokers and advisors will come to the sitting leader in the White House and say, no, of course they're going to implement all these policies, just give them time. That's how the regime uses time. But there is no more time for that regime, because if they get to that nukes, and I'm not just concentrating on the nukes, I'm concentrating on the terror networks. The terror networks, if they come inside our countries, they could hit our nukes right here at home.
Yeah, no, we're going to have to leave it there, Waleed. It's clearly going to continue. We'll bring it back ASAP. Thank you. Appreciate your time, Waleed Faris.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go to break, very quickly, throw up that screen again. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear it, because you can call this number. Remember, you may be on television tomorrow or the next day, 888-601-0032, so keep it clean. Keep it, as O'Reilly used to say, keep it pithy, meaning get to your point real fast. See if we can get some of your comments on TV tomorrow or the next day. Back in 2.5 minutes. All right, folks, before we move on to anything else, something needs to be said right here and right now. Liberals, anti-Trumpers, and whoever else is out there doubting or critiquing Donald Trump's stance on Iran, I want to tell you all to understand how deeply we are hated by these insane people. Here's their entire parliament chanting death to America, not just people, their entire government, parliament, chanting death to America, a battle cry that pretty much targets each and every one of you and me. Watch. Yeah, there needs to be a regime change. I just don't think we should be the ones doing it. Let Israel do it. They got it. We'll help them out. Let them do it. What a time to be alive in America right now. Tensions from way back on the campaign trail followed Trump right into office, and the recent news cycle has only amplified the animosity between the left and the right, political left and right in the United States. Democrats like Chucky Schumer make a living off of our fears. And here's Chucky blaming Republicans for all the violence that his side is creating around the country.
And let me just say one final thing in augmentation of what Amy said. The increase in violence, threats of violence against members, didn't happen by accident. It happened because of the coarseness of the debate, but beyond that, the kind of rhetoric that we hear some in the hard right use, which at least some people think gives them a permission structure to do very evil things.
You know, it kind of started with all this pro-Palestinian marches and the protests and the riots on our college campuses. And then it progressed to, well, we hate everything that Trump is doing. And when Elon Musk joined Trump with Doge, remember they were burning Elon Musk's Tesla dealerships. They were burning them. They were scratching them. They were spray painting liberals who were buying electric cars because they were greenies. They were buying Elon's electric cars and they were spray painting those. They flipped sides because Elon was pro-Trump. They do everything that Trump does. They take the opposite side of it. So understand what these liberals are all about. All this protest that you're seeing right now, anything they're protesting what's going on in the Middle East, our involvement, this is all stemming from liberals being activists, protesters, and rioters. They're the ones hitting cops with bricks. It's not conservatives, it's liberals. So these knuckleheads, I'll use a nice term, these knuckleheads like AOC, Chuck Schumer, the rest of them, all of them, Hakeem Jeffries, blaming Trump for this or blaming MAGA for this is absolutely ridiculous. It's just gaslighting. You know it's you guys. You know it's your side. You're the side of violence and destruction. Stop it. All right, we're going to break and we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. I'm not sure what's on the backside of it, but we'll figure it out. Just come to us. Come to us. This is more important. I haven't seen this guy in the better part of a week. Let's bring him in, Mr. Stephen Bannon. But let me just say this. Stephen Bannon. This is
Hold it. Hang on. You were supposed to meet me in Butterworth. Were you in town?
Steve, I was in town. I called. I texted you. You didn't answer me. I said, let me take you to dinner, have a drink at Butterworth.
Well, hold it.
And then our friend Raheem said he wasn't going to be there. So.
No, because during the time of war, I hunkered down in the bunker. But you got to give me more than a couple. Here's how bowling works. Here's how bowling works. I'm gonna tell you how bowling works. Bowling's the kind of guy. He comes in town, has the whole thing planned, and he texts you like 4 in the afternoon. Hey, what do you want to grab a drink? Because what happens is the thing he's got lined up is falling out.
No,
so you're like the backup to the. No, you're the backup to the backup plan.
Ask Cameron if I told him I was going to be in town the day before. Ask Cameron; he'll tell you. I gave him a heads up. Okay. So listen, I was going to open this segment with: is this the Steve Bannon that's on the top of the Daily Mail right now, the main story, or is this the Steve Bannon that's on top of media? You're the most important person in me. Everyone wants to know what's. Are you going to be on The View tomorrow?
No. Hang on. I want to tell, my agent told me this. It said they noticed an inflection point when I started doing the hard changeover from the Eric Bolling show. So I'm getting a little of that 5 magic. Right? You've laid some hands on me. So
I'll tell you when it happened. I'm going to tell you exactly when it happened. I'm going to tell you exactly. Here's what happened. I was with Cuomo on Patrick David's podcast. And at the end of the segment, we were talking about MAGA. And I said, you're the true north on MAGA. You're the Don of the MAGA world. And Cuomo and I were going back and forth about it, and I pulled out the shirt, Steve Bannon's my spirit animal, and all of a sudden everyone picked it up. Like, Bannon is MAGA, and you're crushing it. You're crushing it.
Stop. Thank you. No, the president is our, but Cuomo always introduced me, says that you're the spirit animal of MAGA, so I appreciate that.
He stole it.
Eric, thank you so much.
He stole it. Hey,
stole it. Lift it.
Help us out here. We're going through this whole, where's MAGA? Is true MAGA behind bombing Iran? Is true MAGA behind Trump no matter what? Is true MAGA, America first? We don't want to touch, and we want to send our kids into war anywhere. MAGA guru, help us out. Where is true MAGA North?
No, I think, listen, as you know, with President Trump, he's weighing alternatives, weighing options. Look, he said today that a couple of things. Tucker called him and apologized. He's all good with Tucker. You got when he's putting up the flag, which Bolling, you got to understand, how genius is that? We've had the White House since what, 18? When Dolly Madison was there. Even she didn't think of. We've never had a big flagpole with a massive American flag. It's just so incredible. So President Trump is weighing and measuring his options, and clearly he's getting a lot of pressure from the outside. We are, people are adamant, hey, we don't want to get into another war for the simple reason is that this is what led to your rise to power, and you're doing so much that's so great, and we got so much to do. We know how you're going to get tangled up in just the country. But, right, what you have to weigh and measure your options. When you make a decision, come out like only Trump can do, explain it to people, walk people through it. The MAGA movement's going to back President Trump if he walks through just his logic, how he came to the decision. And I happen to believe right now that it's not a foregone conclusion. It's not a foregone conclusion. We should go through more information, more details, and at some point in time, with polling or whatever, show President Trump what the feeling is, because these are his hardest core followers. These are the people that really came on board the earliest, because we want to get out of the foreign wars, we wanted to seal the border, we wanted to confront China and bring manufacturing jobs back. Those were his three, what he originally ran on. And so his most loyal followers, and if you see, it's guys like Gates, it's guys like Marjorie Taylor Greene, all the hardest of the hardcore of MAGA. Is kind of united in this. So we have a lot of work to do over the next 72 hours.
Yeah,
but we'll do it.
Is this fair to say that this, in the same way that I don't love tariffs, I still want Trump to win. I want it to be right. I want America to succeed. I also don't want to have involvement in foreign wars other than support, even if it has to be financial. This is one I guess we can get behind. And still, is this a fair assessment? Because I think if you trust Trump, it's going to turn out okay, even if he's taking paths that may not look the right way right now. Fair?
Fair. I do think, of course, tariffs, we're right on that and you're wrong, but it's different. So because we're right on
the jury's out of that.
I think
the jury's still out of that, my friend. I'm not taking the L for that yet. I'm not taking
No. By the way, he's still a neoliberal neocon, but that's okay. He's in his rehab program from Fox. We got to repurpose Bolling. No, this is so fundamental to the movement, and he's got so much going on that's so great. And people want to see that succeed. The only way we save this country is with President Trump and his leadership. That's why this thing that's so foundational and fundamental, and I think it's the Israeli. My mantra right now, as I said, they should finish what they started. They started this, and yes, President Trump has been adamant. We've been adamant. The mullahs, the Ayatollah in that crowd can't get nuclear weapons. We happen to think through economic warfare, because when we put sanctions on in the first term, they almost overthrew the government. Not totally, but they had, and remember in 22, they had people in the streets for like 5 days, right? So these things are doable either through coercive diplomacy, which I think you're seeing now. President Trump just said they called him up. He's thinking of bringing him to the White House. There's a long way to go before they start dropping bombs there. And we're going to break it down tonight in the 5 o'clock show. The Israelis should finish what they started. The United States is here. We don't need to bomb tomorrow, like we didn't need to bomb last Thursday. That is just not true. We did not need to go. The Israelis did not need to go. There was no pressure that had to happen last Thursday. That could have been developed much more so the people can get behind it. Right now, most Americans walk around going, what are we doing in Iran?
Only a few seconds. Here's my stance with this whole divide, whether there's one there or not. We had the Democrats painted in the corner. They were failing. They didn't have policy that the American people wanted. They didn't have a leader. And then this split when Levin is arguing with Tucker and Hannity is on one side and Bannon's on the other. Doesn't it light their fire again a little bit? We don't want that. Let's put them out. Let's put them down the way we hope Israel puts down Iran while they have the chance.
Right. But I don't want to put them down by agreeing with those guys. I think their behavior in Fox, they should be. And remember, they're not MAGA at all. They turned on Trump in 2021. Let's tell it like it is.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
Murdoch put in there. You know this.
Well, I'm not sure they were ever Trump. I'm not sure from day one they were ever Trump.
You know, I don't want to get into the behind the scenes things, but you could tell stories for hours about what the reality was there. And Murdoch was very upfront. He was never for Trump. And those guys in 21, when this audience hunkered down and joined the precinct strategy, get everything done, this audience was his hardest core followers. They had Ron DeSantis on every night. You talk about Bibi doing, this thing of Bibi over the last 30 years that it's only, 12 months away and they're playing it all the time. You could go do Levin of all the times he had Ron DeSantis and all the times that Fox had Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, right. And they promoted them all in 21 and 22.
Well, in 16 they wanted Jeb Bush. In 20 they wanted Ron DeSantis. There's no question they've never been. They take Trump and hold their nose because they know Trump brings a massive audience. I'm eating into your time. I'm guessing because we have another handover, you're going to have some massive media opportunity tomorrow.
Dude,
The View or something. I don't know what. ABC.
I'm giving you credit, Bolling. You're more than a lucky charm. You've got media stroke. People pay attention. You're doing the hard changeover. Not only do we keep the audience and make the audience even bigger in the 5 o'clock hour, but I've now become even more relevant to the media. So thank you very much.
Have a good show. Next
Eric
time in
Bolling.
town, we'll sit
Thank
together.
you, brother. Yeah, can you give me more than 2 hours notice?
Talk to Cameron.
Seriously,
Talk
next
to Cameron.
time, just cause somebody blows you off, you know, just give me a day
Since you
before.
want to throw
Give
me
a
under
day
the bus,
before.
since you want to throw me under the bus on live television, did you ever open the gift that I sent you? Did you ever open the box that's sitting at the Bannon War Room Studios?
Hang on. That hasn't gone through security. Hasn't signed off on it.
It's safe. It's safe. All right, brother. Have a good show.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.